relatively simple. I got a nice board set up chassis wise. I think some of the biggest things, uh, we could actually start with some of the biggest things you see on track, the imbalance of bikes, what you've experienced, as a rider, as a larger rider, and what you've seen the differences between a small guy and a big guy setting up chassis. Like me, I got to use really heavy springs up front to go deep on braking. So you want to, what do you want to talk about, big guy?
Nothing.
Shut up. Where's your
I'm
cocktail?
fucking absolutely destroyed, and I have no energy left for this.
So first off, let's talk
That's
about
what you're getting.
what do you think the biggest issue is when we come in, the guy brings a stock bike into the shop and he's like, I want to send it, and he's 180 pounds or 140 pounds.
They can't ride.
That's a big one. Can't ride. Now,
90% of people that come up to me at the track that want suspension setups need to learn how to ride a motorcycle. They have
body,
zero idea on what their feedback is. The most commonly misused term is chatter. I'm getting chatter this, chatter that. Dude, you're feeling bumps on the track.
ABS bumps,
When you're 30 seconds off of a decent lap time, you're not getting chatter. Chatter happens as we approach lap records.
totally.
Total hot button with me. I hate that
I
word
used
chatter.
I used to come out of Portland at turn five, and I would experience the rear kicking out, and it felt like my front was pushing, and I was tracking, but I was only doing like 115s, and I was brand new. I was like, man, my bike's all over the place. And it was just me, you know, messing up the throttle. So
Hand fisting the throttle.
yeah, a big thing I see was meat
I
fisting
see your
it
dog.
out. Yeah, yeah.
That's,
Where's my
that's the best part of this video right there is your
where's my
dog.
little Ellie poo? So the biggest thing I see with riders is really slow entry into the corners and then absolute meat fisting out of the corner. And then they're like, dude, my bike's not set up. I'm wiggling all over the place. Look at my rear tire. I'm shredding it. And it's like, yeah, because you're coming into the corner so slow. And then you're diving in, but you're cruising in at a very comfortable pace when I don't think most people know the front tire makes a ton of traction in comparison to the rear, regardless of its size. So that's one thing I see is they're diving in really slow. Um, Looks like they're almost tucking the front, and then they just meat fish it out, which anybody can do. So for me, it's helping guys. It's understanding how they ride, which is pretty difficult if you're not out there with them. So on the sheet that provided, it's questions. How do you ride? Are you a flick it in and then stand it up? Are you a guy who likes to dive in early and stay leaned over for a long
No, the,
time?
the funny part is like you're going to get feedback from every one of these guys that they're MotoGP riders, but then when you go ride on the track, the kickstand leans further than they do. So
I know, man. I mean, I think a lot of what we see now is guys try to mimic MotoGP riders where they're off the bike like this. And
do
we
you know how
got
many
no,
times I've passed people at turn six at the ridge where they're
and they're
trying to
just,
drag their elbow and I go right around the outside of them?
uh,
They got all the
yeah.
theatrics going on, but they're just parked. They're just going slow. And I'm
And
not fast by any means.
you're like a 270-pound guy.
I'm
So
just
you're,
a tire guy.
well, you're more than that. Let's talk about your history in racing. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about those credentials. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about them then. So Sage Timothy Wilkinson has been in World Superbike. He's worked for Muzzy. He's helped with GP suspension. He's a suspension expert. He's part of the team, and we're absolutely poised and blessed to have this guy's what's up here because I notice our industry, we have more Instagram influencers telling you do this, and they have zero experience. The one thing you can't buy is real world experience at a high level of racing, working with really good race teams. You've had a ton of success in racing, literally, and nobody knows your face. And I try to tell people, just because people aren't well known doesn't mean they're not experts, right? We can take what's his name, Thermosman. He's back east. Nobody knows who he is, but he's really good with fluid dynamics. You know what I mean? So I think the biggest thing I see is spring rates. Guys want to get in, dive into the corner, and they're too stiff in the front because they're like, oh, I'm this weight, I'm that, but they forget that their level of riding is incredibly novice. You know, it's like you can take a stock suspension versus a guy who's got, you know, the full setup and pass him. Run, you know, my bike is set up for probably originally it was Dan Wilson. So he's probably about a 215-pound guy. I'm 240. So my bike is set up pretty soft. But I had to adjust my riding style to those spring rates because I knew I couldn't dive in like I normally like I like to. I'm always been a heavy breaker. Matt Mladen is the guy who stuck something in my head many, many years ago, and it was anybody can twist the throttle, but not a lot of guys are good on the brakes. And that gets that chassis imbalance. So that's kind of what this is behind us, is you have, right, the forks, rake trail, where the tire actually contact, which is about right there. I'll bring this closer. That's some chain and sprockets right there, but can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So one thing is this. Well, if it's too soft, get on the gas. The bike squats in the middle. People think it's doing this, but it's really dropping force because we have forward motion, inertia, and we have three different things going on here. That's why I explain to people motorcycles are more like airplanes, and loading them properly. You see guys get on the gas when they do these extended arms, which, you know, you're not a fan of because
What? No way.
you hate them. I mean, but guys are going to buy them, and I see it all the time. Guys are running stock springs. They'll get the 4-inch over arm, and they're going to run a stock spring rate, and they just try to add preload to, and they don't
Yeah,
adjust
you
their.
can't do that. It's just turns into a big gummy worm.
Yeah, so the bike ends up just launching on rebound. They pin it, they get a little squat, and they're sitting there robbing themselves of horsepower, squatting the bike, and then it picks up, and they're on a stock motor. And the biggest thing I see is guys saying, my tuner's the best. And I go, dude, if your tuner was as good as you said it was, we wouldn't even know he exists because he would have taken that $250,000 paycheck and gone to work for some world superbike team as an engineer, tuner, chassis. Like tuning's to me, it's just making an engine efficient, which is obviously what tuning is. So that would beg the question of stage one, stage two, stage three. That's typically for turbos dropping the volts so they turn on a little bit sooner. So one caveat is, what would you say about tuning? Is it, can we do, let's just take a street guy, because that's 95% of riders is a
You
street guy.
lost me. You went from chassis tuning to turbos.
I know, because they go together.
It's
Tuning,
really all right. Gotcha.
they do. You'll see
Long
why.
swing arms and turbos go together.
No. Tuning. So we have basic
Stay on
tuning.
track. Stay on track, Bo. You
You
get your
gotta
drop
get
back there.
okay. Let's go with, what is your take on spring rates and how important are they?
They're important. I mean, that's
It's not like a
30
car.
minutes. You're gonna edit this out, right?
I'm gonna edit all this. I'm gonna clip some stuff out, but
I mean, you got me after I've been at the track for 2 months straight, and I'm just cooked. So
I get it.
I
But
got like
you
heat
know,
rashes on my
I love
head.
I love it.
Too
But
much sun.
it's our first fucking episode. I have to cut out the
I mean,
bleep
yeah,
us.
spring rates are important. One of the things that drives me nuts is When people say I got springs for my weight, well, so you got springs for your weight. Do you got springs for your ability? Do you got springs for the track? You got springs for the level of grip that the track has. Is the track flat like Portland? Is it got up and downs like the Ridge at
Oh,
Laguna? That changes spring
yeah,
rate. The grip level at the Ridge changes spring rate. So
yeah,
if you go into your race tech service center and they put springs in it for your weight based off of whatever Excel spreadsheet they got, that doesn't take into account for a lot of things.
it doesn't. It's a one-way approach. To me, I try to
I think
explain to people.
springs for your weight on a street bike, if you're just cruising down the road with street tires and you're trying to hold the bike up and, uh, you know, just make for a better ride as far as get the suspension up into the stroke where the thing can actually function and not beat you up.
Yeah,
I mean, that's fine, but as we move into the racetrack, as we move into long swing arms, like you're talking about, it's not necessarily sprung for my weight. So
yeah. No, it's like my writing abilities as they progressed. I didn't have to, it's like I kept having to up my spring rates over time, and it was, Thunder Hill. I remember. Uh, I don't think you were there that weekend. It was the Halloween weekend. Sam Vidovinko was out there, a bunch of guys. And that was that weekend I famously tell the story about how I went over to Barry with my pure ignorance looking for qualifying tires. And I asked him, I said, Barry, I need the stickiest of the icky. And he's like, I got him. He's like, you'll never lose grip. I took him seriously. And I went out and I was putting down hot laps, passing sand. I mean, I really like it unlocked everything. But when I came in, Barry's like, dude, you're burying your suspension. You know what I mean? Because I went from a novice rider to I thought I could never lose grip. My confidence level went through the roof, and I just overwhelmed the suspension. And I found that out coming out of the front straightaway, and here I am pinning it, and my suspension. I'm already entering the corner with a ton of entry speed, mid corner. I'm already goosing it before the apex. My bike's just squatting and running wide. Prior, I never had those issues. So, there's a lot of dynamics that go into chassis. So I think what we can really accumulate it is we need your riding abilities, your honest riding abilities, how you like to ride. Are you a point and shooter like most guys on 1,000 cc? Right? I think a lot of guys get on these, from what I see on the street guys, they go out and they buy this 1,000, and they're like, it's a great bike. And they think it's like a car. But like I said, to me, they're more like teeter-totters, and they have to be balanced out for all the right reasons. So honestly, I think we can kind of end with that, dude, is very simplistic sixth grader approach to understanding spring rates, applying them to your current chassis and your current riding abilities. And maybe next week we'll go into, air gaps, damping, compression. Um, but the big thing is just getting people to be a little bit more knowledgeable, getting them away from the hype of, dude, get the 4-inch overarm, get the 520 kit, do this, do that. And I spent an hour with the guy the other day, a little over an hour, and he's spinning the tire, and I said, well, you've strapped your front end, which is you need that front end to slow you down with your top out springs and everything, your damping controls. And he made a few adjustments, dude. He's like, oh, I'm hooking up now. I'm hooking up. Got him the right spring rate. So anything else you think you could add for chassis? Let's say lengthening it, topping out the forks, dropping the forks. No,
depends on circumstances.
true. I agree. I agree. So let's see if we can get Barry on here next
I
week,
mean,
dude.
there's no one perfect setup.
Agreed. If I were to just finish it, it would be with balancing the chassis. A lot of guys that have been coming to Factory Superbike are like, I'm on the street and I do some straight line racing. They've turned over into like what we used to see in the 90s and early 2000s, you know, guys racing on the street with their, you know, whatever Type R Hondas and stuff, and that culture has moved over too. So what I'll do is I'll cut this video up. I'm actually pretty fucking tired myself, and it gives me about 30 minutes to get this thing ready and all the notes in there, and I'll take the highlights from this, and then we'll try to schedule this a little bit better and try to do a nice live next time, because it'll pay off. I mean, just those little videos I've been making, like
Is that your Diddy oil over your shoulder?
no,
What's that?
it's
What you got going on there?
eye drops.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, hopefully
That's why that guy's rear end was spinning so much.
I was loosening that shit up.
He was strapped with your factory Superbike oil.
I know, dude. That's another thing we could talk about later is different oil flows. You know, like we got Delaney talking about the 30, the Nicks. I'm like,
Dude, we
oh,
could do a video on what oil is the best for my bike.
what was that?
Something.
PJ1 sperm whale jizz, something like that.
The blue label, man. Chain
Blue
lube.
label.
Blue label chain lube.
It's good.
No whale sperm.
So, well, let's not. I'm gonna knock this out, dude. I'll hit stop. I don't even know how to hit stop recording. Pause recording.